I work with a lot of executives, and I'm seeing some patterns, especially recently, that weren't there a couple of years ago when I started coaching. Hi, I'm Kristina. I'm an executive coach. I specialize in like automation, working through overwhelm, especially with people who are neurodivergent, ADHD, autistic, and I work with a lot of people who aren't. So, this list of top challenges I see with overwhelmed executives is basically a culmination of everybody. So it's not just the neurodivergent. Okay, coming in at number one is unsure how to onboard. So they sometimes I've gotten it where they feel like they don't have to, they shouldn't have to, even though they're an executive and they're hiring a director and they don't have any onboarding process and they expect HR's onboarding of like health insurance, getting on payroll to be it. They expect people to start the ground running, which I get, and making introductions is key. Starting them off on a great foot to work with other people and explaining how you work with this person, how you'll be communicating, introducing them to other people is critical for success in the workplace and just like human interaction. Coming in at number two, we have scared of accommodations, the A word, accommodations. A lot of times in the past that has been focused on American with Disabilities Act. If you have more than 50 employees within a certain radius and lots of other things, you have to provide reasonable accommodations. And so they are scared of that word because they're worried that they're going to do something wrong. I'm here to say, and I tell them all the time, you're already providing accommodations for people outside of the ADA. For the parent that is leaving early to take a kid to a doctor's appointment, that's an accommodation. For somebody who is leaving because they're caregiving for a sick parent, that's an accommodation. For somebody who is going through cancer treatment, you are like, okay, yeah, you can work from 7 a.m. to 2 and then go to your cancer treatment and have the next day off with FMLA. Like those are accommodations. Those are accommodations. Okay, coming in at number three, confusion between support versus accountability, coaching versus direction, and training. So these are not all the same thing. I have a matrix of these. I talk about it a lot with my clients. If you have given them, I'm like stretching, going up and down here. If you have people that are leading or onboarding and they're not sure how to support their staff or hold them accountable, and they don't know the difference between support and accountability, support can be something as simple as cheering people on and asking them what their goals are. That can be support. Accountability is asking why they didn't hit or accountable to how they're going to move forward, what that looks like, and holding them accountable in that way. Coaching is person related, like maybe they have an interpersonal challenge, maybe they're challenged with another team member or another director. Again, these are overwhelmed executives, and they're not quite sure how to coach versus giving direction. Direction is all about goals. Coaching is a lot about the person, about what they need to succeed and how you're helping them. And then also training. A lot of times people confuse coaching and training as the same thing. It's not, okay? Training is about some of the basics. So this goes back to onboarding, right? Like you don't have a process. I mean, at minimum, you don't have even like a philosophy of what onboarding could look like or should look like for people to get off to the right foot. But they have a real challenge with what training is. So they think coaching, training, and direction are all the same thing. It's not. Sometimes and this is why I talk about my matrix. There's a leadership and project matrix that I follow with my clients on how to identify which one is coaching, which one is training, which one is direction. Because a lot of times people lack direction and you're like, well, I showed them how to do the task. I showed them what to do, but you have no direction, which direction is goals, prioritization. And so people forget these things. It boggles my mind, but also it's okay because that's what we're here for. Coming in at number four, expecting people of a different wage bracket to work the same amount of hours that you do. So executives, you're paid to be working at a different level. Strategically, thoughtfully, you're going to have a little less when it comes to boundaries sometimes. The thing is, what's interesting is that a lot of times people expect lower wage workers to put in the hours the same as executives so that they can prove themselves. Y'all, we're not going to see that with these generations that are coming up. They're going to be like, yo, I'm getting paid $25 an hour. You get paid $250,000 a year. We are not the same. And that they're acknowledging that. So they're really baffled by the boundaries that different generations are setting. So I'm here to remind you that expecting lower wage workers to work the same is not going to cut it. So number 5 is unsure how to relate to others. So these go back to soft skills. Grace McCarrick right here on this app talks a lot about this. Follow her if you're not sure how to boost your soft skills, because that is a skill that I'm seeing that is disappearing and has disappeared for a while in corporate America. Unsure how to relate to others, how to put yourself in somebody else's shoes or another team's shoes, especially if you're in charge of initiative. And finally, number 6 is chronic overwhelm. So I put up here like challenges overwhelm executives, chronic overwhelm. Like you're talking day-to-day overwhelm. And overwhelm stress is not always a bad thing. I remind my executives that sometimes a good amount of stress is just what we need. It doesn't mean that your life is stress-free. That's not how life goes. That's not life. That's not living. If you have chronic, like no stress ever, you're not really living. But chronic overwhelm can do major damage. It can do major damage to your emotional, mental, physical wellness, but also to your team because they pick up on that. So they don't have ways to address chronic overwhelm for themselves. And yes, the employer is responsible for a lot of things when it comes to this stuff. However, the buck stops with you, executives. What are you doing to make sure that people are onboarded on your team? What are you doing to understand how to provide support for staff or adjustments? I was on a panel and people were saying, instead of accommodations, let's talk about what adjustments can look like. So you don't necessarily, there's not things that you always have to go through HR for, okay? Don't be afraid of the word accommodations. Number 3 is confused between support versus accountability versus coaching versus direction versus training. Those are all not the same thing. People have a tendency to put them all in a ball where they say, training, I did training. You did it for 1 hour 6 weeks ago. I was in a training a couple of weeks ago with a leader for an HR training company, and they said that I'm going to get this stat somewhere, but it's 10% of people's like actual learnings come from training. Like 70% come from like actual experience. So training's all well and good, but if you don't have proper direction to help with prioritization and how to like actually implement that training and where to implement it, it's going to fall down. Number 4, going back, like if you actually want people to have buy-in, you have to compensate. It doesn't always have to be financial. BT'd up. And then, of course, the tip that I give for unsure how to relate to other people is taking a beat. And what I do with some of my clients is understanding how different brains work. So it's not just neurodivergent brains that are struggling in the workplace, it's everybody. So unsure how to relate to others, their needs, from like financial needs to emotional needs, it goes back to those soft skills, treating people like humans. And then with chronic overwhelm, the buck stops with you. What are you doing to support your chronic overwhelm? What are you doing to set up boundaries? What does that look like? You can't put all the accountability on the employer. You have to show yourself how you're supporting yourself, so then that can reflect back to your team. I know that these are going to be controversial. I know that they're going to be controversial. Here we are.